So let's talk about something that, you know what? I love technology. Let me just say at the outset. So when new things happen, when I see robots and people are like, oh, I'm like, oh, look how cool. And I've been so down with even the idea of artificial intelligence until 60 Minutes did a segment on Sunday. And I watched it and I had to read the transcript over. And I have some of the alarm that other people have before. And it's not the alarm like my parents, like the VCR is flashing 12 and they have no idea what's going on, that kind of alarm. It's more like even, and I'll just read a little. They interviewed the head of Google and they created their AI versions called Bard, B-A-R-D, like Shakespeare, the Bard. And they had a moment where they talked about the mysterious part of AI is these things called emergent properties, where AI is teaching itself things that they were never taught by human beings. One thing, somehow it started learning Bangladesh and was translating other things. And I'm like, and the guy, the head of Google goes, you know, you don't fully understand it. And you can't quite tell why it's doing it, but we call it a black box. I call it slightly alarming. Like you've created a creature that it can't think, but it can do things you haven't programmed it. And you're like, and everyone's like, I guess that's fine. Keith, what about you? Is the prospect of what AI could do that great that you're like, okay, fine? Or is it what Alex is saying? It's like human beings. Like AI is not inherently bad. It's just a machine. It's a technology.
Well, it's like every piece of technology that we benefit in a great way from, there's always the downside of what happens when the evil, corporate whomever, that makes the bad decision in the boardroom, we won't tell the rest of the world that we can do these horrible things. Like I think that is what we are as human beings. And so we can't ever get that bad actor influence that you were saying out of it. But what scares me is that it's sort of like, we don't, you recognize that this machine has done something that you didn't program it to do, and now it's doing it, and you're surprised that it happened, like, whoa, that's crazy, and not thinking of, like, what does that mean in the long term? Like, what's going to be the next weird thing that it's going to decide to learn on its own, until we are living in this crazy, psychotic Terminator 2 world. And the only thing that I can say is that if I'm lucky enough, I won't live long enough to care. And so, I don't want to be the jaded old, I don't want to be that jaded old guy, but like, if people are not going to stop and do the reflection and realize that this has the potential of being a really bad thing, and pump the brakes enough to like assess what really is going on and what really can happen, and think about what would happen if this does fall into the hands of a so-and-so. Like, we've already seen those things where people are doing those AI versions of like Tom Cruise and having them make all those weird speeches and stuff. It's like, so it's already escalated to that place where it is, they can already do damage to people. So now we're watching not only we as human beings using it to do damage to people, and then it's learning Bangladesh on its own. Come on, like let's.
We didn't program it. It's just
it just decided Bangladesh. That's the language I want this week. So like I said, it's fabulous to look at, and it's wonderful to see that we can progress that way. But at the same time, it's like, pump the brakes a minute, because that's kind of strange. It just decided it's going to learn another language. Like,
I all of a sudden, and I'll tell you, in a theory, the head of Google was on 60 Minutes, said in defense of it, well, we don't fully understand it, but we don't fully understand the human mind. Yeah, but you didn't make the human mind.
No.
You made this, and you don't know what it can do. Like, no, like, help us before it's over.
That's the scariest part.